Welcome, everybody, to Triangle Skeptics in the actual, real, in-person meet space pub.
I'm going to pinch him to see if we're real.
It's real. It's not a dream. That was a psychic pinch, wasn't it?
Oh, it didn't hurt? Okay.
Thank you so much for coming, and to those watching the replay online, thank you for tuning in over the interwaves or whatever they are nowadays. We have a fantastic speaker for our first time back in an indoor location in person. Susan Gerbic is founder and grand poobah of Monterey County Skeptics, also the founder of the Guerrilla Skepticism project on and off Wikipedia. She is founder of the About Time project, which is a sort of umbrella for many of those bodies. And all these things are true because I read them on Wikipedia. So if you don't believe me, look it up. Susan, did I leave anything out?
Why am I?
Oh, and Susan is on the East Coast with us instead of in Monterey, Salinas, California, where she normally resides, because she's been in D.C. receiving the Philip Klass Award from the National Capital Area Skeptics. So we thank Susan so much for adding on this leg to her trip, and she's going to give us a talk tonight about doing science activism in the middle of a global pandemic. So, Susan Gerbic.
Okay, so I'm live, right? Am I there?
You're hot.
I'm hot, man, I'll tell you.
Yeah, baby.
Oh my gosh, North Carolina, what the hell is going on here? I'm from Salinas, California, next to the ocean. It's mild all year round. We don't deal with this stuff. This humidity stuff is like, what the, anyway. So thank you so much for coming out. It's always a joy to get to the smaller groups, and I mean that in the most affectionate way possible, because it's a lot of the smaller groups don't really get the attention because you don't have huge groups of people, you know, hundreds of people to show up. So I love coming to the smaller groups. And I know you had Brian Dunning out here recently, and if Dunning did it, I gotta do it. So, you know, we're good friends. So anyway, and you can see, am I gonna be okay over here? It looks like some of you people are gonna have problems seeing me.
You're good. Anywhere along that.
But if you guys want to back up or something, or make yourselves more comfortable, I'm very normal about that kind of stuff. So I am Susan Gerbic. I am, as he said, the leader and whatever of all these other organizations. I'm also a fellow with the Center for Inquiry, and I'm also a recipient of at least 2 of James Randi's Educational Foundation Awards. And it's mainly because I have such incredible people around me. It's not necessarily because of me, but as you will see from my presentation, it's more because of the people that tend to socialize and, well, not socialize, tend to migrate around me. And my skill, if anything, is more managerial. And that's just keeping people in line, setting goals, pushing them to finish things and stuff like that, and checking up on them. So what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm sorry it's hot in here, but it's about 40, 45 minutes, something like that. And I really appreciate if you give me lots of feedback or Q&A afterwards. And I don't know you guys, you don't know me. And so that's going to be really interesting that most of you don't know me, are checking in to see what the heck I'm going to be talking about today. So what I am doing is I'm talking about my project. This is the About Time project, and I will give you the screenshot several times. Maybe I should come this way so people can see, sort of. I don't know. You guys are, some people are in some places, some people are in other places.
I think we can see.
All right. I'm not that important. So just watch the screen, just listen to my voice. So what's going on is I'm going to talk mostly about the things that I did during the pandemic. I'm extremely active year-round with activism, scientific skepticism, activism, more of a, like, in your face sometimes, and more like get things done kind of personality and kind of things that we'll do. But during the pandemic, I was locked down just like you guys all were in California and my home, but we took advantage of that. And when I say we, I have several groups of people that do these things. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, as I said, I'm going to show you this several times. I'm going to talk about some things that we did. Now, this is a nice clear screen, but I don't expect you to read the stuff that's on the screen because you will not see it. And it's more there as a visual for you to understand where I'm going with this. So I'm going to put up a lot of things that do have text. I know I can tell you don't look and read the text, but you're going to be like this anyway because I know how skeptics are. So just keep that in mind. Everything I'm talking about is on the website abouttimeproject.org. You'll be able to go there later. You can fall into the rabbit hole and you can read about everything I did before the pandemic. But mainly this is just the stuff that's happened since the pandemic. So I have many different teams that work with me, and the one I'm going to be talking about first is the Guerrilla Skeptics. Now, this is a group that is very small. It's changed hands multiple times with different people. I use people depending on their location and whatever the activity is. Mostly I work with psychics. And when I talk about psychics, I'm not necessarily talking about the one that's in the street corner that has a shop. Mainly my focus is those that have a little more prominence. They have TV shows, or they're getting some kind of notability, and those are the ones I really focus on. And when I say psychics, I mean mediums, people who claim to speak to the dead, people who are taking money for that. Now, I know that's a big term because I will say the word psychics, but I actually am really mainly focusing on people who are grief vampires, so that's what we call them. People who are trying to get a hook in somebody who has a missing child, or whatever's going on, you know, where they're lonely, they're desperate. And I want to make sure I'm very clear on this at the very beginning, that people who fall for this are not stupid or uneducated people. Most people can fall for a scam if given the right parameters in their lives. And people who go to the buy-in to the speaking to the dead are mostly people who are have been in a religious household, who that's not such a big leap for somebody who believes in the afterlife to think that you can contact them for some money. So most of them are raised in these households where that's kind of normal. And also in the time we're living, especially, come on in, and especially, find them a spot, especially in the time that they're somewhere. Put them over there. So mainly in the time that we're living in with the pandemic, there's a lot of desperate people out there who are just lonely. And, you know, we may be more social people. Thank you guys for coming out. But a lot of people, that didn't happen to them. They did not have an outlet. They had nobody to be able to talk to. They didn't have the ability to, if you remember the beginning of the pandemic, how frightening it was. I mean, it was terrifying. At least I was terrified, having bad nightmares way before we had vaccines. And so we didn't know what to expect, how much worse it was going to get. So people turned to these kind of people. So here we go. As I said, do not read all these things. They're all on my website. So these are 2 different articles that I've done. And again, you can't really see it from where you are probably, but they're on the website abouttimeproject.org, and I'll show you that screen again. So these are here as guides to talk about some of the things that we've done. So since the pandemic, this article I wrote, and this is a thing that I hear constantly. My boyfriend is Mark Edward, who's my partner, and he's at home taking care of the cats right now in California. And he's a mentalist who specializes in psychics. So I'm more concerned with the hot readers. That's people who have information about you before you attend the event. Than the cold readers, which is more typical of a psychic. They read you in person. They can see you, they smell you, they look at your rings, they can listen to your accent, and they pick up, you know, just things about you as they know you. Anybody who's ever been in sales, cold reads. That's just the way it is. Because when somebody comes in, you're making a decision about a person. Are they here to buy shoes? Can I get them upgrade to the better vacation spot? You know, whatever. So cold reading is something that humans do. We make assumptions about people, and then the cold readers tend to just really make a general statement that sounds very real to people. So we hear this phrase constantly. There is no way the psychic could have known. I hear that all the time. And people tell me, oh, we wouldn't have known because I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, my father died in 1930, so how could they know about him? I'm here to tell you they can know. If a psychic wants to know, they can find out something. If they can't, they'll skip you and move to somebody else. Because they only need a few people in the room to really look accurate. So some people are really hard to find information on, especially if you have a common name and you're not on social media. It's really more difficult. But it isn't impossible. We have people, Mark Edward tells about, because he was a mentalist and did the psychic stuff for years, you go to the bathroom, you get in the stall, pick your feet up, lock the door, and somebody comes in and they're having a conversation with somebody else. You look underneath to see what their shoes are, and then you follow them out, and you can see where they sit, and then whatever they were talking about, a business trip, a vacation, a grandchild coming. There's ways of finding out if you want to. And we've done all those tricks. It's all much easier than you think. So what I have put up here, and this whole article is about many ways they can know. If you have lived in the United States, there is probably something about you in a record. You probably have a birth announcement in the paper. You probably broke your arm or in some kind of way that was unusual enough to get you into a newspaper. You probably were you're in the honor roll, or you graduated somewhere, or on and on and on. There is a record of you. Somebody dies in your family, you are probably listed on there as somebody who's part of the obituary. So these are Facebook photos. I just took them kind of randomly off my Facebook feed, and just looking at the background and the different things around me and so on, you can pick up tons of information about me. I have cats. I like to read. There's a lot of flowers. There's a jigsaw puzzle, tons of books. There's just tells everywhere if they want to look at a photo and on a person as well. Again, you're looking at the rings. You're listening to my accent. I probably have an accent compared to you guys, right? So hopefully I'll be right. Not at all. This is another article that happened during the pandemic. A woman reached out to me and said, Susan, it's just because you've never had a reading from a real psychic. That's why you don't believe, right? So she contacted me because there was a New York Times Magazine article about 2 of the stings that I had done back in 2018, I think is when it appeared in the New York Times. So, and that's on my website too, if you want to see that. And she contacted me because of that. And she said, I'd like to give you a free reading. And I said, no problem. But let's do it on Facebook Live, which is where we are right now. I have a Facebook Live. Say hi, everybody in the future. Or over on this video, that's the people in the future. So what happened is I said, I want to do it live on Facebook. Come on in. Somebody find him a chair. Here's a chair. Put it over there somewhere. So what we said is that what I would do is I didn't want the woman to, if she was so accurate, so positive, and so perfect, I didn't want to be accused of editing the video to make her look bad, right? So if she was so accurate, everybody who's watching on Facebook Live would know as well at the same time. Okay.
We're passing out information.
Okay, cool. So what happened is she wouldn't be on camera. So I just took my phone and I dialed her number and I put it on speakerphone and I let the Zoom screen go to me. And then for 2 hours, she was giving me a reading. It was an abysmal failure. All the audio and everything, the video is up on my, in the article. You can look at it if you really want to watch it. Because then we did an hour afterwards where she hung up and people that were watching came in and they really were interested because of the words she used. She really believed she was psychic. And I didn't give her a lot of tells. I mean, I was just like, that's very interesting. That's really interesting. I didn't say yes or no. She had all kinds of problems. My grandparents, I've never met any of them. They were long dead before I was born. And so she had me watching TV with them, eating popcorn with them, and all kinds of stuff. But then I had a back and forth with her later. And so that's all in the article as well. So if you find that interesting. Another thing I did during the pandemic, and my team did, is we went to every single psychic we could find's website or social media and looked to see if they predicted the pandemic. Because obviously the pandemic has affected every single one of us, right? So what I did is I went and we did screenshots. So it's evidential, or we loaded the website to the Wayback Machine, which freezes the page, right? So one of the things I did in this article, they oddly did not see this coming, was just over different psychics that are booking themselves. So not only did they not see the pandemic coming, but they booked themselves for events during the thing. So they would say, I'm going to be in, like John Edward. He had, John Edward, is that his name? Gosh.
Crossing over.
Yeah, crossing over with John Edward. Okay. My boyfriend's name is Mark Edward. So it's just like, so John Edward was going to Australia. He planned all these events in Australia. Why would he plan all these events in Australia if he knew something was going on? Maybe he shouldn't, I'll give him a benefit of the doubt. Possibly, maybe they wouldn't have known exactly it'd be called COVID-19, it would be exactly this and coming out of wherever. But they should have known there'd be disruptions in their events. But no, they didn't. And not only did they make these appointments, they went on vacation, and then they had to cancel the vacation. Here's Teresa Caputo. She had all these events that she had to cancel. This is John Edward, and it says, cancel, 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 new date. He doesn't give us a date. Why? I don't know. Because he should know, right? When we're going to be free to come back to, she canceled her shows and then had to reschedule them and then canceled it again. So, I mean, come on now. You should know these things. This is I think this is Teresa Caputo again, a canceled event in Reno. And all of their sites will say, who?
Thomas John.
Yeah, and Thomas John on this side. Thomas John is my favorite because Thomas John is the one that they did the article on me and him in the New York Times that I caught him big time. And he went and he had Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. He had a show there where he'd do his little thing. And we were following it. And I've got lots of articles on what I did with it. But I have some screenshots of people saying, Thomas, how long are you going to be in Vegas? And he's like, indefinitely. And so buy your tickets for June and July. The tickets are now available on Ticketmaster. And we're like, buy your tickets for your event in June and July? How could, it's all canceled, So, and then now he's gone. So it was pretty funny. Here's another thing I did. And I'm going through these kind of quickly because I know the articles exist somewhere else where you can look at them. This is a fun one. This guy's a UK skeptic, and he's like the flavor of the day UK skeptic. He's the kind that really maximizes Facebook, where he uses Messenger, he spams people. He's like very low price psychic, and it's just general information. But a Facebook group approached me because I'm known for my psychics being involved in the psychics. And it was a James Higgins Psychic Scammer Exposed Facebook page. And you don't need to know who he is, really, because he's just some guy. But he's really taken advantage of a lot of people who are really desperate, looking for information. And then he's really been doing a lot with the Facebook feeds. They can't get rid of the spam. They're constantly spammed. He threatens people. It's just really ugly. Anyway, so I write for Skeptical Inquirer. And I publish there. The person who who oversees me and approves articles and things like that is Barry Carr, who's the person who puts on PsyCon every year. So I wrote to Barry and I said, hey, I want to write about this guy. And he's like, why? Susan, that's not worth your time. He's nobody. I said, I know, but he's kind of fun, and there's this Facebook group that's trying to expose him. And so I went to the Facebook group and I said, I'm looking for screenshots. Could some people in here give me screenshots of these specific things for the article I'm going to write for Skeptical Inquirer? And a day later, I get a message from somebody who says, or James Higgins, and says, hey, you can't be doing that. I'm going to sue you and have a nice day. So he really did. So I went to Barry Carr, and anytime I write about a psychic, I have to also give the information to the lawyer, see if I make sure I'm not slamming anybody and getting sued. So I ran it by them, and I said, look, he says he's going to sue me. He's like, oh, now you got to write the article, right? So we did write the article. It was fun. It was an interesting look into a different kind of psychic medium. Another thing, now don't get hungry. I started doing I did a lot of other things. During the pandemic, we did something called Operation Lemon Meringue. All my investigations start with Operation and they have food. It's all of them. Onion rings, Operation Ice Cream Cone, Operation Pizza Roll, Operation Peach Pit. They're all like that. So during the pandemic, we did Operation Lemon Meringue. So there's a ton of articles that are associated with that. One of the things we did, Thomas John, that's that psychic I was telling you about that was at Caesars. We started going back. I've written so many articles about him. We started going back and looking at some of the things he'd done. And when you've watched enough videos by these people, they all have their own method, right? So what we noticed is Thomas John was looking at the screen. Now, I don't know how he's doing it, but in my opinion, there's my disclaimer, right? In my opinion, somebody's feeding feeding hot reading to him. And when you're looking at a computer screen, and anybody who uses Facebook, one of the things appears at the bottom of the Facebook page on Messenger that's where it opens up on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. So he has, we've noticed as we watched a lot of his videos, that he peeks into to the lower right-hand corner of the screen. He's looking at you straight on, and whoever he's reading, and he's giving gibberish. It's all like, I see very general, yeah, and it's just like he's trying to save time. I mean, trying to stall. And then all of a sudden he looks into the right-hand corner, and then he comes up with something like spot on, like, who's Buddy? Like that kind of thing. So I have a 30-second clip. I don't think it's going to have audio, but that's okay. You don't need it. So pay attention, and if you look, you're going to see him peek. And if you're looking really hard, you might see him peek twice. So check this out. Let's see if it works. This is about 30 seconds. So how to make it go? Enter? There he is. Now watch him. He's talking to somebody on a Zoom screen that'll appear in a minute.
I think it's better with the sound off.
Yeah, oh, trust me. This guy's appearing in my dreams. He's just, his voice.
Nightmares.
Oh yeah, that too. So to watch. He's just getting a psychic feeling. He says the last couple of years for you have been really, really stressful. No kidding. It's the pandemic.
Well, that's not subtle.
No, it's not.
Now watch for it. Peek again. So he does this peek thing. I haven't done it yet, but I want to try to come up with a video of just peek, 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 and I could probably do that, but it would be kind of fun. But I busted this guy so many times that it's just, after a while. He appears a lot with other psychics who are, not as famous or not as, popular as he is. They don't have TV shows like he did. So he had others. This is Kimberly Meredith. We watched their feed. We signed into Zoom, which is easy because we're all on Zoom. We could just be anonymous. And you go in and you're just watching and recording the whole thing. And we can, as they're calling on people, their name's right there on the Zoom screen, my team is watching and goes to their Facebook page. And we'll say, I guess they're going to get something about a dog because they've got a dog up on their Facebook page just having health problems. And then he'll come along and say, something about it, it's like an animal, and I'm getting this yellow kind of, it's kind of large, like a medium size. I think it's a dog. Is it a dog that's named Buddy? How did you know? And my team's like, yeah, there's Buddy. We knew that was coming. So we can follow this. Kimberly Meredith is an interesting one because she doesn't heal people. What she does is she looks at a person, she'll have them stand up on Zoom, and so she can look at their body, but she blinks really rapidly, and she blinks at them. And that's how she gets her, she sees what's wrong with a person. It's almost always something that's like, back problems or stomach problems or something like that. And she talks about blinking all the time. Here comes a food. So. No, that's, just hand it out, I don't care.
I have a size house balsamic.
I can see when they're coming, and I'll let you know.
You're psychic. You know when they're
I know I can see when they're coming. Do you need forks and knives too? I think they need utensils. Yeah, napkins too. So these are all really interesting. Suzanne Northrup's been around a very long time. She's also a cold reading kind of person. When my boyfriend was is with Michael Shermer's group, the Skeptic Society. He was one of the early fellows, and back way before I knew my boyfriend, he had done a TV show with Michael Shermer, and Suzanne Northrop was the person they busted, and so it was fun to come back in and see where she is now. So that was one of the Operation Lemon Ring. So again, I will show you about this in a minute. Here's another thing that we did during the pandemic is Thomas John had us a TV show, and this is before I met him or knew of him, and it's called Seat Belt Psychic. You put a seatbelt on. So the premise is it was only one season. You get in the back of the car, you put your seatbelt on, he drives away from the curb, and then he talks about your dead fellow members. Oh, more food, here we go. Pass them down.
Mine tacos. Right here. 2 pretzels.
Okay, so what he does in the Seatbelt Psychic show is he it was very odd. I wrote about Seatbelt Psychic. You could read all about that, read all about it. But on this, we revisited Seatbelt Psychic. So what we noticed about Seatbelt Psychic is he doesn't, he's supposed to be like a ride share. But there were so many odd things. Like the people would get in the car and they put their seatbelt on and then he would drive away. And at no time did he put any information in the little, iPhone that's like at the thing. No time did he confirm who the person was who got into the car. No time did the person ever have bags like they're going to the airport. At no time did, any of that happen. The other thing, they always sat in the same seat. They always sat in this, like he's driving, so they're sitting in the right seat. They never moved over. And if there was two people in the car, they'd sit here and somebody'd sit in the middle. No one ever sat in the comfortable seat over. And that's because the camera had a better angle on the people. The other thing is we noticed is that the people always looked too dressed. They didn't have any kind of logos, no kind of T-shirts that had like baseball hats, nothing like that. Their hair looked a little too well combed and groomed. And that's because they're extras kind of. The other thing we noticed is there's multiple camera angles. So as the people are walking up to the car, there's a video on them. They get in the car, there's a video on them and multiple angles. So we're thinking, why did nobody get in the car and go, what is up with all these cameras, right? Nobody ever said that. So I ended up interviewing somebody who was in the back seat of the car. I found somebody actually. So during the pandemic, 'cause that's all before the pandemic, more food. Quesadilla.
The Reuben.
I think that's Jeff.
And the chicken fajita. I got one more load of food.
Here comes some more.
Wings. And then this is the yoko with bacon.
Pass it down.
What about the fajita pita? The chicken fajita pita?
Can you guys give him some utensils and stuff too
I'll
back
grab
there?
utensils
Oh, he's
and
got some.
napkins. I'll be right back.
salad, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. I'll be right back with that.
Got it.
Is this like cash cab? Cash cab?
Like a cash cab, exactly. In fact, I think it's probably made by, and very more disappointing. He makes people cry. So what we noticed is we went back and looked at his videos, and this time we looked at the videos, but we turned off the sound, which made it more peaceable. But my team, we just got on a Facebook group that we have a private Facebook group called Operation Grief Vampire. You can't find it. It's very secret. But what we noticed is we made screenshots every time there was an image showing behind the window. So these are screenshots of the same location. 3 different women get in the car, and we could see this location. It's very distinctive, and we started looking it up on maps, and we figured out where he was picking them all up from the same location. That ain't no Uber driver, right? So we were able to figure that out. The other thing we figured out is you could look through the window of his car. Here he is in 3 different outfits, supposedly 3 different days, exactly the same location. So we figured out he was going in a giant loop in North Hollywood. He was always in the right-hand lane. He only turned right. It was always a right turn. So probably for insurance reasons, he's probably driving around like that. So we knew where he was picking them up. We knew, and we also knew that the show was edited in such a way. Here comes the coleslaw. Sure.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You're on film. Say hi to everybody.
We did order food, so don't be.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So we found out that what he was doing is some of the audio was off. So like he would say,
Utensils and napkins.
okay, wherever.
I'll give you another water. Tonic. Does anyone else see anything?
I wouldn't mind just a diet or Coke Zero. That would be great, thanks.
Anything else?
Red Oak, Guinness, water.
I'm glad she's on it. She knows this stuff. So we noticed that the audio was wrong because if he was talking to somebody, having a conversation, you could see through the window where they were when they're having the conversation, like there'd be stopped traffic at a signal. And then the conversation would continue and they're going through a tunnel and there was like no time that passed. They're going through a highway tunnel. You could see it. And then a minute later, the conversation would continue and they're still at that stoplight where the cars are parked, exactly the same cars. So we could see how it was edited, that they were obviously editing it to mean something else. So anyway, this article was something we did during the pandemic. Here's another picture of people getting into the back seat, or they're letting them out. And we could see Kaiser Permanente, it's a hospital in LA. We could find it in the back. This is a library. So we were able to see that in all the videos. And this is a article called Right Turns Only. Okay, so I'm gonna go to New Zealand for a moment. This is a woman called Jeanette Wilson. You don't need to know who she is. She's just a psychic healer in New Zealand. Oh, I'm sorry, she doesn't heal. God is the only one who can heal. So what she does is she channels doctors who are dead, and they will heal you, okay? They will tell you what's wrong, and then they will heal you. That's how it works. So this woman is pretty prominent over in New Zealand, and what she does is she is the New Zealand Skeptics, because I love all the different groups out there. I'm involved with them. Here comes their waters. Water, 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 water. So she was tied to, so the New Zealand Skeptics, just like you, it's a group that goes to, and sometimes does things, and they were going to her events. And what they discovered at her events is that she was, at one point, her husband was videotaping everything. Things went up on YouTube, but then he would pause the video and then restart it. And during this pause, she would go into an anti-vax rant. So she was really, so she was pretending she was an anti-vax, also anti-mammogram, into ghosts, all sorts of stuff. So, but it didn't show up on her YouTube site. So what we did is about 3 in the morning for me in California is I and some other the New Zealand skeptics attended her show over Zoom because, you know, you can. And it was a lot of meditation. It was really hard to stay up for 2 hours. The clouds are floating and everything. And she went on to talked about ghost photography and so on. And I'm recording it. So what happens is that after it was over, because I never ever let on who I am. When I do any of the stings, we play it out to the end. We always stay in character. We never jump up and say, hey, you're a fraud. Never. So I stayed in character, and at the end, about 4 in the morning, I said to her, they had a question and answer time, and I said, look, I'm living in, I said I was in Vegas, because that was my profile in case they did a hot read, that I looked like it was in Vegas. And there's 100,000 people dead in the United States from COVID. That's how long ago it was. And I said, I'm very frightened, everybody's frightened. What's gonna happen? What's gonna become of us? And so she gave me 16 minutes of ranting about vaccines, how much she supports Trump, how much she's, how she was good. She could hook you up with a supplement that they sell. Here comes Guinness and something else. Some supplement they sell that would coat your lungs, that would keep you from getting COVID, and on and on and on. So she gave me 16 minutes of a prized, I'm recording. I don't know how she didn't know I was recording. She's a psychic, right? So, you know, it's fair. If I was ever taken to court, I'd say, well, they should have known, right? I mean, you know, come on. So New Zealand skeptics have a relationship with the site, with the media there. So there was so when I got the video, they took the video and put it on, gave it to a reporter in New Zealand. And the reporter had interviews her. And during the interview, he asked her about her anti-vaccine views and you know, anti-COVID and all that other stuff. And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, I just watched the video. And she's like, what video? You know? So I put it up on my YouTube site for the newspaper to get it. So he did a really wonderful video on her, article on her. The spinoff is like like Politico, or not Political, but it's like big enough that it's a name. It's not like New York Times, but it's a big enough site that it has journalistic integrity kind of thing. So this is an article about that. She was really pissed off, but oh well. But some time passes, and in New Zealand they have a they have like a House of Representative kind of government. It's like that you run for local office and then you could be prime minister or whatever, I guess. So she decided she was going to run for office, and so she did try, but she only ended up having a 22-hour political career. So she was right away.
So she actually got elected.
No, she tried to get. She said she was going to run. Yeah, she was going to run, and they exed her. Now I don't know if the articles we had written on her had anything to do with it. She had other problems too, but you know, that was probably part of it.
England is an advanced country.
Yeah, they are advanced, you know. So what happened, and now these people are all distorted, there's nothing wrong with your eyes. But this is what a screen looks like but their names are clear and the faces are clear. So when you attend one of these events on Zoom, there could be 300 people on there. $20 a person, that's a lot of money for a couple hours, right? He does 10 readings. Some of the people he's already read before, which is another form of hot reading. But this is the idea. Again, you can see cold reading behind him. You can see information about people as well as you go through these things. So it's not like it's hard. And the people that they read are usually people with very unusual last names. A lot of them are women. They're almost all women, by the way. It is totally female oriented. And so a lot of them are like hyphenated last names, which includes your maiden name. So it makes it all that much more easier to look up your obituaries that you might be included in. Very simple to do. And again, they're only looking for about 10. And if they don't find something with that person, then they look for somebody else. It's really not difficult.
Well, do people register in advance? So they
Yes,
have to
yes.
Okay.
They're registering in advance. So if you go to their Facebook page, which is wide open, we do that all the time also. So this is one thing, right? So you got adults paying $20 a person or whatever. I think it's a shame and I think it's wrong, but you know, they're adults. So what am I going to say about that? I can point it out and I can explain it and I can, you know, show it, but I don't want to shame the people, so we always conceal their identities. But it's not my business necessarily. But what crosses the line is when he's going to do readings for children. So Thomas John decided that he was going to do psychic readings for children ages 5 to 12, a small group of 8, $400 each. So this was going to be April 19th, 2021. So I was furious. And everybody who saw it was like, what the heck? We can't allow that. I mean, that's wrong. We couldn't get it canceled. We could not get it canceled. This was, I think, announced in December of 2020, something like that. So we tried everything we could think of to get it canceled, and we couldn't get it canceled. Anybody knows Steve Novella from the Neurologic, whatever his blog is, the SGU and Science-Based Medicine. So I reached out to Steve and I said, hey, can you do something? I thought maybe they would listen to a Yale professor, a neurologist. Maybe that would have some weight. So Steve Novella wrote a really nice article talking about the dangers of giving readings to children and trying to encourage them to go into mediumship. Children who've had parents and stuff that have died recently and now they're whatever. So Thomas John, it didn't do anything for it. He got all upset and he's like, you know, they're just spiritual people, so, you know, whatever. So he read the article, but it didn't shut him down. So what ended up happening is I needed to get in and attend because it was going to happen. And I'm not going to go into detail on this because I have a very long article and there's many articles out on it. It's the last thing I did and it's the last thing I'm going to do for a while because I've caught these people so many times that we have to have the media to come in and start doing something because I can preach to the choir till I'm blue in the face, but it's having an impact on their business. It really is. But it's not having a fast impact on their business like I would like to. So we did attend. There's several twists at the end. It was very interesting. I have the readings all broken down. It's a very long article because I want the children when they grow up. Hi kids, if you're watching. He was lying to you the whole time. So the children, the 8 children that attended will maybe someday want to know what happened. And it's all there for them. I broke it down in detail. So it is detailed. Also, it's in detail because I want skeptic groups to understand you guys can do this too. You know, it's not like I'm so brilliant or anything. So the article is called Operation Onion Ring. You can find it. There's videos. I've done lectures on just Operation Onion Ring, and I reveal what happens if you don't want to read the whole article. But there's a lot of information about this, but that's what it is, Thomas John and the children. So I'm going to switch hats, I think. Well, not literally. And I'm going to talk about guerrilla skeptics, because this is a whole different branch that has really nothing to do with the guerrilla skeptics. It's an entirely different group of people, and these are people who are working to change Wikipedia for the better. So I have a large group of people who do this. Many in this room are also my editors. We just had our 12th anniversary a couple weeks ago. I was flying from California to Washington, D.C., so I completely forgot to make a big deal out of it. We had 12 years. It was created by me as a group. We meet on Facebook. We have a secret cabal. It is known. It is called the Secret Cabal. It's hidden. You can't get there. And what we've done is we've trained people from all over the world to edit Wikipedia pages that are concerning science, scientific skepticism, or claims of the paranormal, and we work in all languages. We train. It takes about 4 months to train. It's an involved process, and if you want to talk to me later, if you want to join, I'm happy to send you the information. You can also talk to Adrian, or you could talk to Romero or Jeff or him back in the back, or you could talk to people about this. We're all in this little world that they've gone through the training and so on. So we have been existing for 12 years. 45% of the pages we write are in languages outside of English because I feel very passionate about getting information outside of America. So it's like COVID vaccines. We can vaccinate America, wonderful. But this is going to keep occurring until we can vaccinate the world, right? So you have to get the information out there in languages people want to read. We have to get it to places where people can get the information. So we've been focusing on this for a very long time, and I like projects where you have an end date. You know how you're doing. Where are you going with this project? Are you successful? And with Wikipedia, it's very difficult. We can't say we're done when we finish Wikipedia. I mean, that isn't going to happen. But we have ways of measuring it the best of our ability. We have a program that was built for me, a software program, and Jeff is running it now. It's called Stat Badger. You can't see it. It's only for our team. But it allows us to keep track of how many times a Wikipedia page is viewed. Now, we can't know if that Wikipedia page is viewed by the same person over and over. We can't know if the person was there for 2 seconds and jumped off. We can't know if they read the whole page, but it's the best we have is that tool. So we're able to keep track of the stats of the pages we wrote. And we write we edit far more pages than are in our Stat Badger. We're constantly editing and creating things and improving things. We've written, as of this morning, we've written 2,045 pages. I wrote it on my hand. So we've written 2,045 pages to date. This morning was the last one. And those 2,400 pages, 45 pages have been viewed 113 million times. So we know we're having an impact because people are reading this and they're getting information. We also know that the media is accessing the Wikipedia pages because we'll find quotes almost directly in media articles that are taken right from our Wikipedia pages. We've written 104 Wikipedia pages concerning vaccines, people who are disinformation, anti-vaxxers, or the organizations they represent. We've written pages about trimerisol. We've written about COVID. We've written about a lot of things that have to do with vaccines, even the people who invented the vaccines that have saved our lives. So we've written 104 pages on vaccines, and those have just been viewed just over 5 million times. Yeah, that's right, 5 million times. So, wake you up. So we know we're having an effect, and we've got all kinds of projects. We work on UFO pages. We work on all kinds of stuff. And I have something for you too, because today my hosts, Faith and Romero, took Adrian and I. Adrian is touring with me. She's only touring the first 3 stops. She came in from Calgary to Boston to be with her son, and then she flew over to Washington, D.C., and then she's just joined me on tour. We really haven't met each other much except on Zoom before. So we went to, so after this, we're going to Buffalo, New York to go to CFI headquarters, and I'm going to give you a talk there on Friday. But we're touring. I want to see stuff. I love history. I love all this things. So we've been kind of going around. We went to a graveyard today, and, as people do. We went to the History Museum. You guys have a lovely state, and the history is really interesting, and it looks like they're doing a really good job, telling the history. So today we went, and they took me to the graveyard, like I said, and they also took me to, where was that place? Mordecai Park. Mordecai House, yeah. So we toured that, and we saw all that cool. It was really fun. So while I was getting ready to come here, like about an hour before I got here, I uploaded a couple photos I took because I realized that the Wikipedia pages for a couple places didn't have good pictures on them. Now, I know you're not going to like this person, but I thought I'd just tell you that at this place, we noticed that he's buried there. I'd never heard of the guy before. He's one of your governors. a Confederate. Just saying.
Of course.
Say no more. But I noticed that that he was buried there because the Wikipedia page for the cemetery had like notable people who had died there. And we said, oh, let's find his grave. Or I think Adrian was wandering around and she said, oh, look at this is the governor. And so I went over and I took a picture. So what I did is I just uploaded the photo. These are the small things that people could do. You don't have to be a member of our group. It's just easier because we train you. And then I put this picture up today. I just did that right. They don't even know I did it. So, and Adrian took a lot of photos so we could do something else later, but I just thought I'd put it up just for training. Yeah, we teach people how to, we teach people how to edit, so we have that photos to have them teach. So this is a tombstone of the governor. It wasn't there until about an hour and a half ago. And the cemetery had a picture right here that was like a picture of tombstones. And I was like, well, that's not very good. So Romero stopped the car, I got out and took a picture of the archways, you know, and the entrance. I said, okay, main picture. So I put it on the main picture just before I got here. So I thought, these are the kinds of things we can do to improve Wikipedia, you know, obscure museums, people who are in the media. There's so much that we can do as a collective, as I said, that don't have to join my team. We can show you how, but lots of people do it. So I'm nearly done with my presentation. So those of you who haven't ordered, you're more than welcome to order. But I want to show you something that I'm really very, very happy about making sure that we all get together and try to network, because that's how we really get somewhere. You know, we network with each other, you get to know each other, you share a beer or a coffee or whatever, and we make connections, and that's how we are building our community so we can do more. So that's why I really like to come out to these smaller groups, because it's more intimate. You can ask me thousands of questions. I'll make something up. But one of the things that's coming up, and this is one of the groups that I'm involved in, this is the Bay Area Skeptics out in California. We put on a conference every year. Last year we did it over Zoom. This year we're doing it over Zoom again. It's sponsored by the Monterey County Skeptics, the Bay Area Skeptics, Sacramento Area Skeptics. And this is online. It's $20.22, 3 days. I'm going to hold trivia. There's like a Jeopardy category thing that I can't really tell you who's going to be in it, but I think it might be Bill Nye and a couple other people. And so these are some of the speakers that'll be there. I'm going to be holding trivia. That's how I know Faith and Romero. They joined my trivia team. I play trivia on Zoom every Thursday. Just telling you, it goes late, but man, it's fun. And people have gotten to know each other really well from trivia. We've never missed a game, and we just had our 102nd game. And we were only going to do one. And then everybody kept coming back. Oh, we're doing this next Thursday? I guess so. Okay. The things you do, and they just end up becoming successful. So this is some of the people who will be talking. It's at Skeptical 22. Again, it's online. It's in July. Sign up for it. Even if you can't attend online at the moment, you'll have access to the videos for 6 months. And then they'll make them live. The other thing I really want to make sure that you guys are aware of is SciCon. I love SciCon. This is the biggest conference that we have in the United States. It's run by Center for Inquiry, or the Skeptical Inquirer group that I'm a fellow of, so I'm obviously biased. I will be speaking at this. I know who's speaking in the future, but I can't tell you. But it's going to be a blast. You guys are going to love this. So SciCon is held in Las Vegas. They always hold it in Vegas because it's inexpensive for people to fly in and get hotels. This will be in late October. If you can go and you want to reach out to me and I can maybe help you find roommates or what to do, how to go, whatever. I've done I've done a lot of these, and before that I used to attend all the TAMs. So the amazing meetings by James Randi. So I just want to push that. And this is my last slide if you wanted to take a picture of it or whatever, so that you know that you can visit my website. Everything that I've talked about, and 1,000 things more are on the abouttimeproject.org. You can learn about Monterey County Skeptics if you're going to come out to Monterey. We do a Skeptic camp every year in January. We have all sorts of interviews I've done with people, famous speakers, famous in our world. And there are also all the articles about skeptics, psychics, and all the other things I'm involved in. And I do have stickers for you guys if you want them, and I have my business cards, and it has me in Bigfoot, so you know that's real. And if you want to ask questions, I'm happy to take questions. Okay, so we're going to do Q&A, and I will be happy to answer questions later, but he's going to make him answer the question. So he's already, for the two people who are out of the room, he's already asked me these questions that I'm thinking about. Chicken-related questions, yeah.
Not chicken.
For the audio, you're on.
Okay.
No
Well,
pressure.
The first simple question was, I love the analysis that was done looking at psychics' ability or inability to predict COVID and the pandemic. Has a similar analysis been done looking back at 9/11?
No. And the
Okay.
reason is, I mean, there might have been people, whatever, but when I thought of doing this for the COVID, the person who edits, who goes through my edits, Barry Carr said, that's brilliant. I don't know why we never thought of doing that before. And he would know if it had been done before because there's only so many people who do this kind of stuff. And also in 2001, social media wasn't necessarily the thing it is now. Yes, Adrian, she has an answer for you, except for the Psychic Prediction Project, the Australian Psychic Prediction Project, which you can read all about from Richard Saunders in Australia. We had a 21-year examination of all claims made by all psychics in Australia. He spent 15 years going through all of the, looking at YouTube, all the magazines, which a lot of them are women's magazines, and he looked at every claim, and he screenshot everything, and he put it in this really complicated spreadsheet, and then he had to go through and evaluate each claim, and that was time-consuming. So what did he do? He said, Susan, I really need some help. So I put together a Zoom group, and Adrian was in it, and some other people, and every Tuesday we met for a couple hours, and we went through every claim, and we evaluated them, and guess what the percentage of a psychic getting it right is?
I'm going to guess no greater than 50.
11%, or is it 11%?
We call it the Saunders number.
The Saunders, yeah, it was really small.
Did any of the psychics get significantly higher than that? Like, did somebody get 80?
Maybe like 15, but he had people do random guesses beforehand. He's asking if there was anybody who did better than that. He had years before he'd said he'd asked a bunch of skeptics, give me your prediction for next year, and those people actually got like 30%. So, but anyway, you can read all about it, It's all over the place. They did look into 9/11, was not predicted by any of those Australian skeptics. Because that's what we did at the end of it. We said, what should they have predicted? Like the Malaysian plane that fell, or 9/11, or things that should have been predicted. And we never found a psychic one of them, not a one of them. So in Australia, they suck. But maybe it's better in other areas, I don't know. But nobody's crazy enough to do that again. Nobody will do it. It took him forever to do this. It was so intense, the details. So check it out. The other question about chickens is what?
I think something's being projected onto me. So the other question is sort of same question, two parts. Have you ever recorded a public demonstration? It begins by saying, what I'm about to tell you, you could do, there's nothing psychic, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do what's called cold and hot reading, and then do it and show how that actually works. But then the better part would be turning this into a TV show, where weekly or monthly, and there's got to be a lot of TV channels, someone who would pick this up, where you or someone else demonstrates non-psychism, whatever the right word is.
Non-psychism?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I got a little chicken something. No, I'm looking.
Okay, we have a chicken
chickens,
farm.
Yeah, he's got a chicken farm. That's
all
really cool.
off tape, yeah.
That's really cool. So, yes, I haven't done any demonstrations. I'm not an expert. Hot reading, every detail is in all the articles. I show the screenshots. I blur out people's names and things like that, but I've done a ton of that. My boyfriend, Mark Edward, does demonstrations all the time on hot and cold reading. We go and we tour all over the place. We did New Zealand, we did Australia, all over New Zealand and Australia, well, all over Australia. We've done all over the place, UK and so on. And what he does is he opens up, he's a professional, he's a mentalist, a performing mentalist. He opens up the show and he goes around and he does hot readings. Because we've already hot read everybody who's going to go, because you guys put on Meetup, you're going to attend, right? And some of the people have Facebook pages. So we just hot read you. We figure out what high school you went to, because you've got it on your page. We know when your birthday is, because somebody's wishing you happy birthday. And then we go and figure out what day your birthday was, a Monday. We'll say, hey, your birthday was a Monday. And you're like, oh yeah, it was. And I see your brother has got a new job or whatever. So we go through and we do the whole audience reading, and then then I come on and then I kind of explain how it's done. So we do that all the time. Lots of people in the skeptic world have done this. Come on in. Lots of skeptics in this world have done this. Hot reading is explained over and over and over, and cold reading and over. What we hear from the believers are they don't want to read it, they don't want to know about it. Number one, that's what they tell us. Or, yeah, that one's a fraud, but not my psychic. My psychic is, there's no way they could have known. So we get that constantly. We also get, they just don't want to know. I mean, Thomas John has done everything he can to keep me quiet, not keep me quiet, but not to mention my name. He's always frustrated. He lashes out on Facebook and says, there's this woman, she's like a cat fiend, and she's like all these things. And one day she showed up for an event and she had pretended she had a dead child. And I did. It was Operation Bumblebee. It was the first one I did, and it had nothing to do with food. But I showed up with a picture of my son, and then I said to his manager that my son had died at 4, and I had a fake name and fake Facebook pages, and the psychic, Chip Coffey was his name, talked about my son. So my son was in the audience, actually, sitting behind me. But the thing is that they just aren't going to go there. So, but Thomas John will mention me every so often, but he doesn't want to mention my name anymore, because what happens is his friends, his believers go, I think he's talking about this article. I just Googled her and I came up with this New York Times article, and then it kind of backfires on him because you don't want them to know about me. Your third question was what? Something about, a TV show.
Have you ever done that and have you turned it into a TV show? But
Yeah.
I've got a fourth question now. I hope that your next project will be called Project Barbecue in honor of your visit here.
Okay, Project Barbecue. Well, it might be a while. We have one planned called Operation Lima Bean, but we haven't. It's all planned, but we haven't. I'm not doing it until I have big media. Yes.
Okay, earlier you talked about psychics who could read the audience, as it were, find out personal things about the audience. How many of those people claim to be able to know the future? To me, those are completely separate things. You could know one and not the other. And
They
there
go
would be
all
no-
over. They go psychics
so
are.
okay.
They say that they're not. Some of them aren't known to be healers or to know about your psychic abilities, like where you're sick at. But then they're not going to, wherever they can take an edge, they're going to go there. So if it's, I hear that you have some heart, I think you should go check out your heart, because there's some kind of, it doesn't look like it's serious, but I would have your doctor check you out. So they'll say, I don't do medical questions or anything like that, but then they go right into the medical stuff. Or, they'll say, I don't predict the future, but then they start predicting the future. They're just making it up as they go, but they're schlick. Some of them are really focused on an area, and some of them are more focused on the other area, but they'll take any hit they can get.
Edwards on his TV show, he used to say, anyone can do this.
Oh, I know.
So
Isn't
that's
that great?
maybe a good example of what you're saying, that
Anybody
could
could do this. I mean, like I said, if you're in sales, you do cold reading. That's just the way it is. The TV show ideas, we've run into, every time I do an article that hits the big media, they come to me and they say, oh my God, this is amazing. We have to do a show with you. And then we meet with these people and they sit down and they go, and then they realize they can't do it because, number one, you're going to get sued. They don't want to do the big names, people who are currently in business. They don't want to do it. Also, there's a competition because they're on TV networks that we'd be showing it on. They don't want to do anything. They want to do either psychics who have been busted or are dead. If the psychic's in jail, they want to do it. If they're dead, they want to do it, but they don't want to do it with me. Yes?
James Randi does a cold reading, and the result is that the audience thinks he's psychic.
Yeah, and that is true. Yes.
There's no skepticism.
Even if you say to the audience ahead of time, this is just a trick, their people will believe that it's not a trick.
And maybe,
Houdini, same thing.
Yeah, and so maybe we're focused too much on exposing the psychics rather than doing what was it Michael Shermer, why people believe weird things. What can we do about why people believe weird things?
Well, that's true. We have to take a multi-pronged.
Because there will always be psychics. What
Probably.
can we do about why do people want to believe in weird things?
Well, we have to take a multi-pronged attack on it. Some people are going to write the academic journals and articles in the books like Michael Shermer, but the believers are not going to be reading that. They're not going there. What we have to do, my approach is that I need to make it as uncomfortable as possible for the psychic to stay in business by drawing as much attention to them. They do not want sunshine on their actions. And the work that I've done so far gets out into the media, and they end up getting their events canceled sooner. They have less people show up. There's a lot more ridicule. People are able, anytime they're in the media's eye, they get Googled, they're going to get one of my articles. And we've seen their rates of their Zoom events go down to like $8 in some cases. The other thing is that it's not about so much about convincing people about psychics, but what's really important is to inoculate people ahead of time, and not just psychics, but with everything. Same with vaccines and all the other things we've been going through. But if you talk to people before they're in grief, before they're super lonely, before they've had a child abducted or whatever, if you explain to them the tricks of the trade and they understand what hot reading and cold reading is and how manipulative these people are, they're grief vampires. They will hook onto you and drain everything they possibly can out of you. If it's publicity, if it's money, whatever they can. So what happens is, if you have explained this to groups and people, you leave and you go and you tell your neighbors or whatever. I went to this talk today. This lady's talking about the psychic stuff, and then you get into a conversation with your neighbor and you kind of explain what happens. If they end up in that environment where this is something that they start to see, they're going to be forewarned, and they will have better information. They're less likely to fall for it. Whereas if you try to take somebody who's already in grief, who's already been giving money to psychics, you're not going to convince them. So I totally understand what you're going from. It's low-hanging fruit, but we got to start somewhere, because we haven't even gotten the low-hanging fruit yet. It's still sitting there waiting to be picked. We haven't taken care of that. We got to get to the big stuff, but before we can get to the big stuff, we got to get to the little stuff. Other questions?
So I love your question, Bill. I think that's great because it extends just beyond one particular psychic to all psychics. But I'm reading something even beyond that, which is maybe the idea is not so much to inoculate against psychics or, we're protecting you from something bad. It's teaching skepticism. Why do you believe anything?
How to think.
Even good stuff. Why do you believe in vaccines? Why do you believe your car should go to a mechanic? Why? So it's not just why do we believe weird things? Why do we believe anything? And then that's building on the base the person already has.
Right. Education is so important, and get them as little as young as you possibly can is the best thing we could do, but I have no power. I have zero power to do that.
The word skeptic has a negative connotation.
That's the word we're using, because there ain't a better word. We have this argument at every skeptic event I've ever done, and it devolves into fighting.
It's the same thing as a cynic.
Right.
And a cynic is a depressing person.
I love the
And a
word
skeptic
skeptic, though.
is
I use it all the time. I love it.
But we're not trying to convince you.
No, but what happens is when I get in an elevator at a conference and I'm attending a skeptic event, they go, "What's this?" And we say, "I'm a scientific skeptic along the reigns of Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Houdini, James Randi." And then they say, "Oh, really?" Depending how long the elevator ride is, you can have a little more. Sometimes you're done in a couple seconds. And they say, and then you could say, most people are skeptic about something. You're not going to buy a car that's got an odometer reading of, this amount on it, because you're going to be a little skeptical about this old car with this very small odometer reading. So skepticism is the word that we use because everything else is awful. And if you want to call yourself something else, that's great. I call myself, sometimes I say I'm a science activist.
The words you use are important, and it
Critical
may be
thinker?
time to find a better word.
There isn't. We've been discussing this for generations.
Right. Even you said
Brights.
critical thinker and
How about
critical.
brights? But yeah, so it's a conversation that's devolved into just almost duking it out in some places.
This is a little maybe a tangent, but
Sure.
I was going to ask about climate skeptics.
Yes.
I was going to change the word to climate deniers, but since we brought it up, what is going on now with climate deniers? Are they giving up?
No, they're still around. They've, of course they've gotten to their, they're getting where they go. But it's, I think COVID has kind of overshadowed a lot of that. It's been interesting up right there. Let me finish my thought. But
you don't hear
the
you don't-
word
you're
climate
right.
skeptic and all vaccine skeptics and all that is obviously a word that happens. But again, I think it's an educational thing. You could say when I go and I'm appearing somewhere, like if I'm in a taxi and they go, what are you here in town for? I'm going to be giving a talk to the Triangle Area Skeptics. Oh, what's that? Then you say skepticism is just a way of thinking about the world. We need evidence for claims of the paranormal. We're more like Carl Sagan, that kind of thing. And then sometimes I'll say, we have nothing to do with vaccine skeptics or climate change skeptics. It's just, I like the word because it allows you to have a conversation with somebody. It's not like a one-word thing they know, like atheist. Okay, we kind of know what that is. But it doesn't stop the conversation. You're able to have a little more conversation.
I like that. I agree. Yeah.
It's just conversational. Yes, Brian?
Well, I want to follow up on what you said. What is the best experimental test of anthropogenic climate change?
No idea.
Okay.
We don't have another planet on which to test.
So there is no experimental test.
No. I'm a manager of people. I don't need to know that stuff. So, any other questions?
You're building a case.
Yes, Paul? Oh, given the mic.
So kind of how like the folks have co-opted the word skeptic for vaccine skepticism and climate skepticism, like you were just saying, Jim. And you were explaining before about how you've done demos to show how cold readings and hot readings can be done. What if we just co-opt the word psychic and you say like we're scientific psychics? And you know what I mean? And we can.
You might have started something, Paul.
You like we can write like how-to guides, websites, and like show people, empower people to be able to do it themselves.
Well,
You know
yeah,
what I
that's
mean?
great.
And co-opt. So that word psychic kind of, we have to take it off its pedestal, right?
That's good. But it is, psychics and mentalism are the same kind of thing. One's pretending to be a psychic and using mentalism, which is magic, and others are. The mentalists and the psychics are kind of the same world, but that's really clever. I haven't heard that before. That's a good idea.
I'm not familiar with the word mentalist.
Oh, it's a magician who pretends to be a psychic.
Right. So, I mean, I've read lots of Carl Sagan. I've been reading Science and Skepticism for, I guess, not that much over the past few years, but I have a pretty solid background, and I don't remember coming across the word mentalist. So, I'm just saying, like,
Oh, yeah.
psychic is a much more, everybody has heard of
Right.
psychic.
I like that idea. Mentalism, do you know who Banachek is?
No.
He's the head of the James Randi Educational Foundation president. He's a mentalist. James Randi himself was a magician.
Yeah.
So but a psychic, a person who does magic, it's like a wing of magic that is, Darren Brown, yeah. He's more mentalist. But a mentalist is somebody who's more likely to look like they're getting the trick. Like a magician is pulling a rabbit out of the hat or turning a ribbon green to whatever, cutting up ropes. But a mentalist is doing it with the power of their mind. They look real.
So how good are you at trivia?
I organize it. I'm not great at it. Yes, sir. Matt?
Yeah, so these people that you're going after, is it more so that because like you believe psychics don't exist and they're doing this, or is it more they're scammers but they're using psychics as their scamming ability? Like, are you more coming at them because of the psychic angle or the scamming angle?
It's a good question.
Or both?
You know, some of the psychics don't have anything to do with money. They're trying to get a hook, like the people who have missing children. They will say, I never charge for somebody who has a missing child. And they go overboard talking about it. So it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with the media is following around the family who has a missing child. And if the psychic can give enough BS and throw out enough stuff, something's going to hit when the child is found, either alive or dead.
Yeah.
They're going to say, I'm seeing the number 74, 74. And then they also throw out a lot of other numbers. But when the child is found and it's near a house and the house number is 7456 or whatever, I did it. And then the media will take advantage of it. So in a lot of ways, they'll glom on for the publicity because it's going to tie to money. So I'm more interested personally in the emotional manipulation of people's memories and how, and like in a grief vampire way, they're really harming these people's memories of people and glomming onto them. The money is So they're scammers, yes, in my opinion. And I think if it wasn't psychics, they would do something else.
Exactly,
I
yeah.
think they would go for whatever it took, but that just happened to be their area. But yeah, a lot of the things that some of these people do, it could translate to another kind of scam, multi-level marketing or insurance fraud or Lord knows anything. Vaccine, selling COVID cures that are fake or, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the second part to that question is, I mean, I don't really have very strong opinions on psychics. It's not something I've thought much about. But if they did really, like if someone had a psychic ability, I doubt they would be like on Zoom calls with people doing these sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
They would be doing something else.
I think they'd
with
be
that
mentally
ability.
ill on the street talking to themselves.
Yeah, like a
I don't think that
schizophrenic
would be
type
something
person or
you
a
could be
shaman
saying.
type.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think there would be any way you could. They would be hiding I think if you could see dead people and talk to them and talk about the grandmas, I think they would be in the cabin in the mountain, living, sustaining, and nowhere near people, because that way they could have a peaceful life. But I agree. I don't think they'd be on a Zoom call. They certainly would not be at the Motel 6 down there convention doing a talk with 50 people in a room. The government would know about them. Mark Edward always says this. He says they would be the most powerful person on the planet. They would be in the CIA or whatever the equivalent of that is, in a locked room, in a bunker somewhere with wires coming out of their heads. I did that, sorry, with my mind. That's another Mark Edward line. That's an Uri Geller line. He'd take advantage of it. Yeah, so there's another one. God, man, I hate it when I keep doing that. The things are falling off the wall. People can't see. But yeah, so if you were really psychic, you would be the most powerful person.
That's probably going to fall and break, so I would just take it off.
They're plastic.
Okay.
If we concentrate, maybe they'll go back the other way. Did I answer your question okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes?
I just compliment. I think it's really great the way you took on the child.
Oh my gosh, that was
side of it.
awful.
I mean, you really.
You wait till you read that article, or
Well,
did you read
I
it?
did
You
read
read
the
the
article.
article?
Yeah, I
You
knew.
don't want to tell anybody the twist, because that would be giving
No,
it
but
away.
you
Did you see the twist coming?
took it so seriously, and I think that's admirable.
Well, thank you. I
Really great.
appreciate that. And I put that together in 4 days. The first sting I did, Operation Bumblebee, took us about 6 months. I think Operation Ice Cream Cone took a couple months to do. And then when I got to this one, I've done them so many times, different kinds, but this one took 4 days. I had to, yes, absolutely. We were trying to cancel it, and it wouldn't cancel.
Okay, I guess I'd just like to ask if there's anybody doing any systematic way of trying to get critical thinking into our educational system, because I feel like, you'll hear educators saying, oh, we won't like critical thinking. As far as I can tell, it means the English teacher says you ought to think about what the author was trying to say. But the fact is that much of the problems in the world are caused by people who sincerely believe things that are wrong.
Right.
And yet there's no place in our education, or at least I don't see it, that actually says, look, here are all the things you have to watch out for. And there's a zillion of them. I mean, there's not just the psychics, but, you have all commercial advertising, political advertising, and fooling yourself, this sensationalism, you believe things that are, yeah, is there any hope that this will get into our education?
Okay, so I have an answer for you. Many people in the skeptic community have classes that are critical thinking classes. A lot of it is aimed at the college universities, because it's really hard to get them into the lower levels, which I think we should start out at kindergarten, to be honest with you. I mean, it should be the basics. And there are people who have some high school classes. And if you attend things like PsyCon, you will meet a lot of people. And there's other conferences all over the world that are wonderful. So there are some teachers who are doing this, and they have critical thinking skills. There's other organizations like the James Randi Educational Foundation. Brian Dunning has educational things for teachers to be able to download for free for classrooms. The CFI that sponsors PsyCon, they have educational stuff. At the last PsyCon, which was 2019, because it was all canceled because of the pandemic, I raised $4,000 amongst people who were going to attend, and we got a school bus, and we got 19 high schoolers to attend Friday. So they were able to sit down with A few of them attended the lunch with Michael Mann, the climate scientist, and a couple of the students asked questions of the climate scientists. They interacted. They got Skeptical Inquirer magazines, and then several people that I asked, could you volunteer, like Kenny Biddle and Stuart Weiss and a few other people. We went to the school and we did little presentations in the classroom, high school level. So this is happening, but it's happening here and there. I can't even imagine how we would go about getting that done, but dang it, we got to get that done. You have a question? You know something about that, Paul? So it's got to be done, but I don't think we have the motivation yet to do it in golf like we really need to.
Yeah, it's more of a thought about that question. We have to figure out a way to make it profitable. Because, I mean, this is the cynical part of me, but it's also true. So there's a lot of political will to discourage critical thinking for obvious reasons. Right. So we can't fight that with logic, right? Like, because we know that's not going to work, and we can't fight it with appeals to emotion. So it has to be. We have to figure out some way to, like, incentivize it. Really. Maybe we can.
Lawsuits do work. We've CFI is now suing Boron and CVS and Walmart for homeopathy in the schools, and it's a court case right now going on. It's in the appeals process in the state of Washington, D.C. So it's happening. I can say Washington here and nobody reacts. I love it.
No, I heard that.
Because you're in the South. I'm in the South, right? Yeah. So my mom's from Arkansas, and so I learned how to say it that way. But if I'm in California, nobody stops going, oh my gosh, she just said Washington. But thank you. I'm with my people. Okay, go ahead.
So I mean, just
Sorry to distract. But.
Just to wrap that up, that goes back to what you're saying about the multi-pronged approach. So I think lawsuits are a disincentive for pseudoscience, but if we can also find a way to incentivize critical thinking in science, then all the better.
Yeah, it's got to be multi-pronged. I don't have the answer. All I know is that there are a lot of people who really, we all agree, we just don't know how, because we're dealing with a lot of problems. But in some countries, they do it well. I think in the Scandinavian countries, they really teach critical thinking young. I believe Australia and New Zealand do as well.
Canada's getting better.
We have a representative from Canada here today. She's a math teacher, so, quadratic equation and all.
There's also Wikipedia, then the Wikipedia project.
Thank you. There's the Wikipedia project. Thank you, Romero, who's got to finish his training or I'm going to strangle him. But I love you. So Wikipedia, absolutely. Wikipedia is written at the level of a high school reader. That's kind of where we're at. There's also other things that you can do to, because a lot of people go to Wikipedia first to get a lot of information. You're sent there. We know it's the biggest website, almost the biggest website in the world. We know it's going to help. We also know that people read Wikipedia and then disseminate it to people. If your neighbor or if you're talking to your brother-in-law about something, he may have read it on Wikipedia. He just doesn't say I read it on Wikipedia. If you're arguing with your coworker about something and then you're talking to them about it, they go home and they get their information from Wikipedia. We know that because that's how we do it as a society. There's people who are growing up now that have never not known Wikipedia, which is really fascinating to me. It's 21 years, I think it's been around, right? 21 years, something like that. So it's people that's never, ever not known Wikipedia. So it's powerful. And if we can't get that under control as skeptics, all the rules are the rules of skepticism. It is a skeptical site. You have to have you have to back up everything with citation. The citation needs to be from a reliable source, on and on and on. It is the dream of skeptics, yet we haven't fully taken advantage of it. I'm the first person that's put together a team that does this. And to do it in languages other than English, people think I'm nuts. But I don't think there's any, she goes, oh, I agree. I don't think anybody's ever tried anything like this before, but it's working, but it's slow. It takes months to train an editor, and editors have lives. So, you work out with a page. Adrienne has written, her first page she ever wrote was Haunted House. And then she wrote spirit photography. She's wrote an anti-vaxxers page, and on and on and on. So I mean, there's a lot of pages that are getting a lot of views. How many views?
750,000.
750,000 views for her 7 pages. So think about it. You know, that's education. So it isn't the solution, but damn it, it's a good try, right? You know, what are you going to do? So of course, I'm looking for editors, and I'm happy. You have to be on Facebook. Yes. Yeah. You got to have Jeff's little thingy toy, new toy.
You say you guys edit and write your own Wikipedia pages. I mean, one of the big problems with Wikipedia is like biases and missing information, and among other things. How do you know when you guys are like doing your own changes to the Wikipedia pages that you aren't introducing biases or missing information from your own perspectives?
Hand the mic over to Adrian. Let's have her answer it, because she's sitting there going, right,
That's a
right.
good question.
Good
It was a
question.
really
So
good
let's hear your
question.
answer, Adrian.
It is policed by other editors, so it is very difficult to write an article, especially when you're new, not to have your bias come through. And one of the advantages of having the cabal is you post it.
Seriously called the cabal, really.
It's a secret cabal. It's a joke, kind of. Yeah, because it was not so. We call it the not so secret cabal, and we post our article prior to posting it onto Wikipedia for everyone to look at. And for example, my Christiane Northrup page, who is an anti-vaxxer and among other crazy stuff, and I was told it was a hit piece, and I had to pull it back. And as a result, when I posted it, very few changes happened. So we have this team that helps us rein in our biases, because it is an issue, and you're supposed to write on Wikipedia in a neutral way, and it can be hard. And I'm finally feeling like I'm getting pretty good at it now. But if it is really biased, it will get taken down
Or edited.
or edited by
Yeah.
another.
There's so many people looking at the pages that it's very hard to get by with anything.
Yeah, and
that's-
within minutes. Like, it happens usually very, very quickly, because there's so many editors that are looking all the time.
and not necessarily our editors.
Yeah.
And so what they do is we also have to use reliable sources. So we can't use a website, we can't use a blog. It has to be.
Can't use Facebook, Twitter.
We have the citations we're using have to be from reliable sources. Like Skeptical Inquirer is a great source for fringe. We call it fringe, paranormal beliefs, because the people who are writing the articles are supposed to be experts in their field. So it's involved. It's a little kind of hard to explain, but yes, we're aware of that, and we do the best we can, and so far it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I hope that answered your
Adrian,
question.
I think he has a question here.
No, I just want to follow up on one comment. So yeah, just to on the trail of that, when you're looking at a Wikipedia page, any page, if you look at the top, kind of left, you see a tab that says Talk. Go to that Talk page.
That's history.
That's a history. The Talk page is
It's on the left.
You get to see the back and forth between editors, and that sometimes is longer than the page itself. And like you can't imagine the level of detail these guys go and people go into back and forth and back and forth. And another great thing about Wikipedia is all the revisions are changed, so you can always go back and look to see what this page looked like last week, last month, last year.
5 minutes ago,
yeah, whatever. And they and it tracks the IP address of where the change was made. So there's other journalism organizations that monitor is ExxonMobil polishing up their own page a little too much. You know
Scientology.
What I mean?
Scientology
is a
was
big one.
editing their pages, and they
Yeah,
got
yeah.
their IPs banned and stuff. So.
Yeah. So the integrity of Wikipedia, I mean, like we're saying, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
It's getting better too.
Yeah.
They're getting better and better with the bots and the things that are able to do. If you went into a Wikipedia page today and you tried to write the F word, you just put it into the article somewhere, it'll probably be reverted in seconds, because they're computer bots that go through and look for vandalism of that sort.
Yeah, and it's common, the vandalism. I think it was my spirit photography page just recently in the talk pages, which we were just talking about. Somebody put fried chicken randomly. That was it. And it got reverted within probably a minute. So it's pretty amazing.
Where did
Is that the new F word?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
No idea,
It was
but
very weird.
people are odd. You know, we're talking about chickens. Somebody from the south.
There's a theme here. Yeah.
Chickens. I love chickens. I really do.
And actually, Susan, first of all, I don't know if we ever thanked you enough. Thank you very much for a great talk and everything you do. And I'm
Thanks
not
for letting me come here.
And I'm not trying to close things out, but I think actually you have demonstrated either brilliant cold read or you truly are psychic, in that you said that you name all of your projects after food, and yet one of them is called Bumblebee. And the only thing I can think of eats bumblebees are chickens.
Well, we did Bumblebee before we thought it was a thing. Just like my trivia, we thought it was going to be the only thing we'd ever do, so we just came up with a flippant name. And if you look up Operation Bumblebee, you'll find a military exercise in World War II. So we shouldn't have named it Bumblebee. So it was stupid. But I didn't know. No, I'm not psychic, so I didn't know it was going to be a thing. Yeah. So the first one doesn't follow the pattern, but everything else follows the pattern of food. They're all easy to spell. The reason why we do that is because we want people to be able to go, like there's a lot of ways you can mess up a psychic show. You could show up with business cards or something and hand out just a piece of paper. Just hand out a piece of paper, the only thing on it. You go to Thomas John's show or go to Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium, and it says Operation Tater Tot, and just hand it out to everybody. Somebody's going to go, what the heck is Operation Tater Tot? They're going to Google it. They're going to get all my articles. So everything has a name that's easy to remember, so that if you have John, well, we didn't do anything with John Edward, but if somebody came to town that we have done a sting on, you could just stand out in front and just hand out a piece of paper innocuously, with all it says is that on there, and then people will be like curious, and they can throw the paper away, and later they can go, what was that Operation Ice Cream Cone thing about? And somebody will Google it and they'll find us. Plus, we want to make sure that it's ridiculous, the stuff we do. And so it makes me laugh to no end that when I do a media appearance, to have these people having to say Operation Onion Ring is hilarious. And it just makes me glow. I will be around, so if you guys have questions, you want to talk to me privately or one of my other editors, you're more than welcome to do so. You have another question? Romero wants to say something about his training?
Yeah,
we had a one-on-one last night that we really worked on it.
I mean, I'll say something about my training.
Oh yeah, please.
Bob,
come over here so you're in the camera more.
Okay, so Bob mentioned that we need to do more, put critical thinking into the schools. I think that's really hard because you have in North Carolina you have 100 counties. You got to go to each county and talk to the school board to get the curriculum in there. But with Wikipedia, what I noticed was that you're kind of sneaking in that critical thinking because we're writing the article and it's there's no evidence for this, there's no evidence for that, and that if a little kid is reading that, they're kind of picking up some of those critical thinking steps from the article itself.
And I have one editor in Mexico, Ernesto. And his wife is a second grade teacher, so she tells him what she wants him to write Wikipedia pages in Spanish for because it's subject she's doing. And other teachers will do the same, and other people will do the same thing. They say, we're covering such and such. They're using Wikipedia, right? So, I mean, you could tell people don't use Wikipedia, and it's a wonderful place to start. Go to the citations, you're going to do all right. But a lot of people, teachers are using it, and the students are using it for background. So you might as well get the pages written well. We've got a lot of pages. I wanted to focus on this during the pandemic, and we just didn't get time to it. Anything that we thought would be school age, marine biology, fishes, anything that a child would probably be looking up, we could get that written and translated and well written. Nice photos, because I like having photos. I'm a photographer by trade. I retired. But photography so that the kids are more interested in the page, they're more likely to spend more time on the page, and so on. Even your Confederate cemeteries here in North Carolina. That was quite interesting. Nobody told me it was a Confederate cemetery until we looked at the Wikipedia page, which is called, they've hidden the name Confederate, by the way, on the Wikipedia page. It says historic, what's the place called? Oakwood Cemetery. But it's actually really called historic Confederate Oakwood Cemetery. I noticed that when I was editing the page. I'm like, oh, they took the word Confederate out of the name. Very interesting. A little whitewashing there, I guess, but, well, it's not just for Confederates, I guess. We've acknowledged it, we're okay. A private joke we've been having about macaroni and cheese for some odd reason. The more tired you get, the more weird you get. Operation Macaroni and Cheese. I got it. Barbecue. Anything else? It's just too hot. I know what you guys are thinking, yeah. Two last comments?
Can they both be last? Sorry about that.
I don't care.
An ultimate and an ultimate comment.
Okay.
So first, I guess I have no idea what the answer to this question is, but if one could make
42.
Scientific 42, very good. I'm sorry. Scientific skepticism cool. Like, I don't know what that means.
I'm
but
cool.
You are. But, how does one make being a scientific skeptic
We just gotta
cool?
we just gotta meet more often and take pride in being what we are, and not be snotty and not be accusatory, and just treat people respectfully, because we're all there. I mean, I believed in astronomy, and Lord knows what I believed in as a kid. Spontaneous human combustion, Don't be insulting. They're on a path. Help them along, and don't make them feel stupid.
No, in fact, I think
stupid.
that's kind of the thing I was getting to sharing, is how we came to our
Absolutely.
skepticism. And I think I love that you've shared some things that you now know are not credible.
Well, I didn't have Wikipedia. Think about spontaneous human combustion. For the people who don't know what that is, it's scary as hell. So when you're a little kid and you're raised in the times of Encyclopedia Britannica and TV shows, you got 3 channels. How are you going to know? If you ask your friends in the neighborhood, I've heard of this spontaneous human combustion thing, what are they going to tell you? Absolutely, the little girl who lived in your house before you. Here's her shoe.
Why do you think that patch of grass in your
Why do you think that patch of grass is burned? So there's nobody to turn to, but now we can turn to Wikipedia. But at the time, I don't know why people of my age and my generation and older aren't more credulous, because we really didn't have the resources to find this out. Somehow we made it through.
And the last thing is there a sort of a bulleted list of the top 3 or 4 things to keep in mind that constitute critical thinking, like, demand evidence, question the quality of the evidence? I have no idea what number 3 would be, but is that list somewhere in Wikipedia? Is that referenced on your pages? Because I think that would be useful.
All organizations have some sort of list. My personal one would probably be kind, would be number 1. Number 2 is anybody could fall for something, so don't get off your high horse. And third is, be willing to change your mind if better evidence is presented. I guess that'd be my 1, 2, 3. I don't know. And then somewhere in there would be like, check your sources, make sure that the sources that you're getting are the best sources you can possibly get. And, there's this thing called Havana syndrome out right now. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare that's been for us. So, because the Journal of American Medical Association, kind of a high prestigious organization, pretty much endorsed Havana syndrome as being something real. And we've been fighting it on Wikipedia ever since, because they've endorsed it. The crickets in Cuba, the people say they've got headaches now and so on. Read it on Wikipedia. It's called Havana syndrome. It's been going on for a few years. Now we're starting to pay people. So if you've got headaches and back pain, and you were in an embassy or anywhere in the world, and you now can make a claim. So how the sources, the illnesses that can happen to you are just illnesses we all have, aging or whatever. Anyway, Havana syndrome, check it out. Okay, so I guess that's it. So if you want to hang out and talk to me, please do so, or talk to everybody. But I'm going to get something to eat, I think, if we're still hanging out. Yes, Jeff? I have business cards and I have stickers.